Hey guys, thanks for stopping by my channel today. My name is Gina, and I firmly believe that there's more to life than looking good, but you've got to look good too. And so today, we're going to talk about looking good, because I'm going to talk about my favorite makeup brushes. At least at the moment, because I am perpetually buying and trying makeup brushes. That whole line back there is full of dirty, disorganized brushes. But they look cute in their mugs. And so, also, it's blurred back there, so you can't really see all of that detail. But anyway, makeup brushes, buying makeup brushes, and using makeup brushes to do the job right is probably one of my most favorite things to do. I started this because, couple reasons actually. I had just posted my review of the Tom Ford bronzer brush, and clearly I love it because I've kept it, and you'll see that in this video, but I think I make a really good case why that brush is worth it. It's not actually worth it, but it's worth the splurge, let's say. Because I don't think any brush would be $115, honestly, but it is what it is. And it's a pretty important brush to me. I have not put it down since, but I'll link that video. Go check it out if you're on the fence or trying to decide what to do. So that video kind of got me thinking about all my brushes. And then the other day I posted on Instagram. It's the same as my name, Gina Creone, same as my YouTube channel. So maybe go check it out. But I posted a video. I was in an arts and crafts store. I was buying Christmas supplies. And I happened to pass by the artist paintbrushes aisle. There is like a tremendous amount of paintbrushes, which I really shouldn't be surprised since there's a tremendous amount of different kinds of makeup brushes. But I guess I didn't think about painters. And so I picked up a really fun, huge brush that looked just like a foundation brush. Like it took up my whole cheek. But what was cool was when I posted that picture, I'd asked you guys, you know, what were some of your favorite makeup brushes, and we totally had a conversation about it. And I realized, you know what? I like makeup brushes and I like talking about them. So this is what I'm loving at the moment. I have made a point as of late to be really specific about what brushes I'm using. And so these have taken quite a bit of thought. And so I was going to do a get ready with me, but we'd be here till tomorrow. So I am just going to show you how I use the brushes, but not really with any products. Clearly I'm all done up. And so, but like I said, I cannot get ready and have a short video. We would just be here forever. So I figured let me at least just demo like the motion of how I use it. And you'll get the idea. Actually, all the brushes were used to create this. So if this looks okay, then the brushes did their job. So I'm going to show you the brushes that I use on the regular. I really don't have, on the daily. I really don't have too many brushes at my everyday disposal, within reach, that I really don't use. I like, my preference is to use a specific brush for the specific action. I know brushes can multitask, and that's great, but that's just not my preference. I will do that when I am lazy or running late, so if I'm in a rush. But I typically have a different brush for each job that needs to happen. I don't know. It's like people who don't like to mix their vegetables with their food on their plate. If I could have like little dividers with my makeup brushes, like that would be fabulous. So, although I don't care if my food mixes on the plate, it's all going to the same place. So, but apparently I have a thing about my brushes. So I'm also going to try my best to give credit to the YouTube creators who inspired me to buy the brushes, because a lot of my stuff came from their recommendations. Okay, so let's go in order. Otherwise, I won't know how else to have this conversation. So, starting with foundation, because yes, I start with foundation. I know you're supposed to do your eyes first. I don't care. I just can't do it. I don't know why. I just can't do it. So this incredibly dirty. Oh, by the way, I did check the YouTube rulebook, and it was not mandatory that I wash and clean all of these brushes prior to filming a favorite makeup brushes video, and so I didn't. I am horrible with that, by the way, when it comes to cleaning my brushes. So just putting that out there. Please don't judge. Okay, so this is by StansOut. This is the Memory Foam Beauty Sponge. I do not like normal regular beauty sponges because you have to wet them, and I could care less. I don't have the time to do that. I also don't like to dilute out the foundation that I'm trying to cover this facial mess with. And so I know they say it's supposed to blend in better. I don't care. I don't like using water. So this is a beauty sponge that you can use dry. I love that it's got a really wide surface area, and it basically does the same thing. It's just a dry alternative because it's much softer. It actually really is kind of made of memory foam. And so I do have a backup, which is why this one looks awful, because he definitely needs attention. I got this idea from Tati, GlamLifeGuru, because they sent her one. I bought that one, but they sent her one, obviously. And so that came from her. I use it pretty much every day, except I only use it for, let's say, regular foundation. I say that because the other foundation brush that I have on hand is actually a brush. This is the Tarte Bamboo Foundation Brush. Stephanie Lita over at SMLxO uses this virtually in all of her tutorials. There is something about this brush. I don't know. I've used a variety of kabuki brushes, round top, flat top brushes. I do enjoy a flat top. There is something about this brush. It's just, it's dense enough, but not too dense, and it's soft. I use this for really thin foundations, like BB creams maybe, because I don't like applying those with my fingers. Bare Minerals makes a foundation. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's really watery. It's good coverage. It's almost like full coverage, but it's very drippy, and I can't catch it with the sponge, with the StansOut sponge. So I'll use this for very liquidy foundations, because those I'll typically then put on the back of my hand and then apply. But I also use these with my foundation sticks. Namely, I use the one by Anastasia as well as the one by Hourglass. And so this just doesn't... You can use this with normal foundations too, but I don't know. This brush, there's some magic going on with it. Okay, so when it comes to concealer, I use two different concealers. One to cover blemishes, and the concealer that I use for that is the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer. And I actually use a concealer brush for that. I use the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer Brush. I love it because he's small. I don't like applying facial concealer with a tiny like pinprick like concealer brush, because I feel like, you know, there's like the center of the zit, and then it like has varying colors that come out that like span out from that. And so I just feel like it highlights, and I just have bad skin. So to go in with little pinpricks, that doesn't work for me. So what I love about this concealer brush is that it will apply the concealer in the center, but then because it's soft but not too soft, and it's dense but not too dense, it will diffuse the concealer around it outside of it. And so it blends it that much nicer into my foundation. And so I have a zit right here, which is why I keep going there. He's been a long-term resident at this point, so I really should stop messing with him because he'll probably renew his lease here at this point. But, you know, I typically break out around my chin. I'll break out kind of in the center of my cheek a little bit. And this just, like I said, it just diffuses your kind of facial concealer. I actually have a duplicate of that same brush right over here. It's the same exact brush. And this one I use for my under eye concealer. Right now I'm loving by Laura Mercier the Flawless Fusion, as well as the Double Wear, Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Flawless Wear Concealer. I used to use the F86, that huge teardrop brush by Sigma. And then I realized I'm getting old, and I actually discussed that in a video about some things that we shouldn't be continuing to do as we get older so that we still wind up looking good. And bringing concealer all the way down your face in the triangle is one of those things that we should probably try to avoid. It's just not necessary. And so I really do try to get concealer. This will work beautifully to get concealer under the eye, but to diffuse it out. It doesn't highlight my nose because the brush is so big. If you use a brush that's too big, you'll actually wind up highlighting the side of your nose, which this nose doesn't need any additional highlighting. So this, even though it's round at the top, first of all, it doesn't prickle you, it doesn't poke you, it's phenomenal, but you can actually like squeeze it and kind of condense it down, and it will just get right in there. It's phenomenal, phenomenal. So I use that for my under eye concealer. I'm going to have to pause because right now my battery is going to die. Bugger. Okay, so I'm still concealing. I'm still in the concealing phase. I need to conceal my eyelids because they get kind of red, and I want to have a nice neutral base for my shadow. I use from Sephora the Pro Concealer number 71 brush. He's pretty wide, so I've got a very broad lid from lash to brow. And so since this is a concealer brush, this will work well with cream products, and I historically use the MAC Soft Ochre Paint Pot MAC Paint Pot in Soft Ochre. And so this concealer brush works very nicely with that cream product. And it pretty much gets my whole eyelid. And it's tapered so that I can get into the corner and not conceal where I don't want to. I can do it very pointedly, but at the same time, I can get a wide surface area going. And so that works really nice for that. Oh, prior to putting on my actual under eye concealer, there are many times where I will color correct first. I love the Bobbi Brown, where is it? Hold on, I got him right here. I love the Bobbi Brown color corrector. The shade that I use is light to medium peach. It's that orangey kind of salmony color. The brush I use with that, since that is a cream product as well, is by Sigma, the concealer brush, the F75. Same idea, except it's very narrow, very pointed. And so I can so precisely get the color corrector on that one line of my under eye that is like blue-red. Oh, it's awful. And so it's smaller than the concealer brush, so I don't wind up applying too much or too many layers of product where they don't need to be. So this guy goes in, and then the under eye concealer can go in, and it's just enough wider than that line so that everybody gets along. Okay, so the next thing I do after concealing and making my face all one shade, the next thing I do after that is I powder. Because I want to make sure I set that makeup. Yes, I do my foundation and all of that before I do my eyes. I know you're not supposed to because of fallout, but I have a brush for that. So, but anyway, that's just, I don't know. That's just the way I like to do it. So next I go in and powder. I use another e.l.f. brush. This is the blush brush. So what's cool about this guy is that he's pretty, he's full, but not too full. And he's a little bit tapered up at the top. And so what I love to do to catch the oil in my T-zone area, like I was saying, kind of on my cheek and then on my forehead, is I use by Youngblood. This is a pressed mineral rice setting powder. So because it's that like mineral rice, something in it is a really good oil absorber. So I take just a little bit of powder, I take this brush, and I'm able to just apply right here. I want to catch the oil where it is, but because I've got a variety of zones, I don't want to put blotting powder, basically, where I'm drying. So I basically get him right here, and then I'm able to go in between my brows and a little bit onto my forehead where I'm able to kind of catch the oil where it goes. I then like to set the entire rest of my face, and I'll even very loosely go over where I applied that blotting powder. I've recently started using by Cover FX the Perfect Pressed powder. There is a loose powder version of this also. I don't like it just because I don't really like loose powder. I'm always afraid. Not that I'm always afraid. I always find that I wind up putting on too much. So I find that when it's pressed, you have much more powder control. So the brush that I love to use with that, this one's by Sigma also. It's the tapered face brush, the F25. So it looks like a tulip. I love this brush because you can get particular, but then you can also hit a wide area. So I will powder all over, but it's very loose and it's soft and it's loose, but it's dense enough too. So I just like, it winds up, like I said, it winds up having a wide surface area, but then also a slightly pointed surface area for where you go around those other areas of your face. By the way, I love using the Cover FX because it's not a flat matte and it's not an illuminating powder either. It's just a nice combination of the two. Okay, I also will set my under eyes. And for that, I've been using by Hourglass. It's the ambient lighting powder in diffused light. And the powder brush that I like using with that is by Morphe. It is the M501. A lot of people use this for highlighter here. I feel like this is too small. I feel like it puts highlighter in a very unnatural, isolated area. But it is also perfect for right under the eye. Again, it doesn't wind up bringing powder all the way down. I don't want to illuminate like down to my cheekbone. I just want to keep the setting powder right up there, and it adds a nice touch and keeps my eyes looking bright. So that's the Morphe, what did I say? M501. Okay. So now my face, like I said, is all one, did I say that already? Is all one color, and it has now been set. And so typically at this point then, I go into my eyes. I have a lot of eye brushes. Kind of always depends on the look I'm doing. Some of them are daily users, ones that I use every day. So let's run through them quickly. My two absolute favorite, I drifted at one point, I then came back. These are both by Morphe. Let me say this about Morphe. Morphe brushes are not the best. I don't think I've bought some of them a number of times. They are not lifelong brushes. They also don't cost what a lifelong brush would cost. I like Morphe eye brushes for two reasons. They don't hurt me when I poke them around near my eye, and they have the best variety of different styles of eye brushes. Not every crease brush is the same. I'm sorry. And they have like 40 different kinds of crease brushes. So for those reasons, I will historically go to Morphe. Now, what I use every single day, hands down, I use the M504. I use this guy. He's very broad. He's a pretty broad brush, but I like that because I am putting just a light, not even a transition, it's not even a crease shade, it's a transition shade. I use this, I kind of raise my eyebrows, and I use this almost above the crease, just to kind of begin to get color in there. It doesn't catch on my eye. It just softly and lightly applies powder. I then almost always follow up with the Morphe M505. It's one number off. So these guys are like the buddy system. This is what I use to begin putting shadow in my crease. It's bigger than a normal crease brush, and so it will blend a little bit above the crease into where I put the original transition shade, but doesn't completely cover it. These two guys in combination completely make my eye look. Okay, at least I feel like it. Okay, so I've got some crease shades going on. Next, I have a variety. This is probably the reason I have the most eye brushes, is to place color on the outer corner. And I have a couple of different brushes that I use to do that. I want to make sure I get them all. I have them all. Okay. So I will go. I did not realize I had a lot of Sigma brushes. Nobody talks about them anymore. Is that because JaclynHill doesn't talk about them anymore? Oh, I should say Sigma brushes came from JaclynHill. But so did Morphe brushes. Okay, here we go. So I use the E25 for the outer corner. Some people use this, they call it a blending brush. This is not a good blender. I am not a fan of this brush. I will apply the powder to the front side of it and a little bit on the top of it so that I can place it at an angle. Hides a reference. I can place it at an angle, get the shadow on the outer corner of my eye and a little bit into the crease. You know the way you would do like an outer V? This one lays powder beautifully on the outside into the crease just a little bit. I will almost always follow that with the Morphe M514. This is a very soft but very small kind of blending brush. I will use this brush to actually blend out that shadow. Am I adding product? Am I intensifying my outer eye look right here? But it is just, it's soft to blend, but very small, so it doesn't wind up putting shadow everywhere. Another brush that I use, depending on if I'm going in with a very pigmented shadow, or I want to be very particular about where I'm putting that shadow, or sometimes shadows that have a lot of pickup and a lot of fallout, I want to be very particular about where I'm dropping that brush. I use the Morphe M506. Super tiny brush, but also really awesome and excellent. If you have smaller eyes, this brush might be better than the Sigma brush I just mentioned in order to drop shadow on the outer corner. And then typically it's pretty soft. You can blend with it also, but I usually then will follow with that same 514 blending brush. I'll probably come up with a couple more of those brushes as I poke through my little guy over here. Okay, when I lay my lid color, I have 3 different brushes for that. This was my very first makeup brush ever. This is the MAC. I have another one. I have 2 on standby all the time. This is the MAC 242. Best lid application brush ever. You can use this when you've wet your shadow. I've used this with some cream shadows. I pretty much default to it all the time. Live for that brush. I bought another one because I thought that brush was on its way out, and it is still going strong. It is the first, like I said, really the first makeup brush I bought. And I bought it for my wedding, which was more than 18 years ago. And it is still in phenomenal shape. So I got another one. what's funny is over time, or maybe, you know, they've made it differently, the new one is much lighter in color, and that's how I keep the two of them apart. The bristles are lighter. I use this guy to highlight my brow bone, typically with, you know, kind of a milky white shadow. I will also, if I want to highlight my inner corner, I will use this brush to do that as well. Because you can kind of, I don't like to put it, again, so pointed in the corner. If I want the inner corner of my eye to have a lighter shadow shade than the rest of my eye, I can use that to kind of just very nicely blend it into the shadow that's already there. Love this guy. Oh my goodness. It makes me so happy that that brush has lasted as long as it has. I do have an inner corner highlight brush. I have the Morphe E36, and it literally will just put powder or put shadow like right there in the corner if you wanted to be even more precise. When it comes to some of the cream shadows or some of the in a pot shadows, like Marc Jacobs came out with some, Tarte came out with some, Natasha Denona came out with some. They're all the little kind of glittery, sort of shimmery kind of shadow pots. I actually use by Wet n Wild. This is a concealer brush. I don't know. It picks up the shadow, the cream shadow beautifully, and I'm able to very precisely place it, especially when you're dealing with like some glitter. You only want to put, like, you don't want glitter, like I don't want glitter in my crease, and this guy will keep the glitter out of there. Okay, couple other miscellaneous, no, I've got a few more. Okay, I'm gonna keep you here all day. I use another crease brush. This is this is by Sephora. This is the Pro Tapered crease, number 19. He is very soft, and I love that because if I kind of want to take this outer color or maybe a third crease color and I want to just kind of blend it over my entire lid, this guy is so soft that it will put just a very nice wash of color. This eye is going to be like way more intense than this eye. It'll put like a nice wash of color without doing anything too harsh, and I love it for that. I also have on hand the Sigma Diffused Crease. This is the E38. This will do the exact same thing as that Sephora brush I just mentioned, with a little bit more oomph and a little bit more precision because it's a little bit stiffer. And so if I want to do a soft wash of color with precision, I use this guy. If I want to do a soft wash of color that's a little bit less precise, I use that Sephora crease brush that I just mentioned. I also have by MAC, just because it happened to be MAC at the time that I bought a pencil brush. This is the 219. I will use the 219, or by Makeup Geek. Makeup Geek also has a pencil brush, and they're completely two different sizes. The MAC brush is about twice the size of the Makeup Geek brush. And so if I want to do a little diffuser color under my eyelid on my lower lash line, I will use the Makeup Geek. If I want to blend out and really bring down some of the shadow that I'm using to apply under there, I will then use the one by MAC. I also use the one by Makeup Geek if I use liner and I want to just kind of, you know, kind of diffuse it out a little bit. So that's what's good about both of those pencil brushes. I know, because doesn't everybody need two pencil brushes? I have two of each of these other two brushes. This is the e.l.f. $1 concealer brush. I use this to apply shadow liner. I use it to buff out normal, like regular pencil eyeliner on my eyelid. Very precise. This is what I was talking about, how I don't like to use a very specific crease brush, concealer brush to conceal, because it's too tight. But this works great to do. I mean, I actually did a video on this, on how you could use this particular brush for like 5 million different things. I will try to remember to link that as well. And then finally, I have two by Sigma small angle E65 brushes. These look like brow brushes that you would use like with a pomade. I use them specifically. I use one to apply, usually it's black shadow liner, because I don't usually do like winged liners or anything, and so I will use this to apply shadow liner. It gets right in there. It is probably the best small angle brush that I've tried quite a few, which is why I have a second one. I also have a variety of other ones that didn't make the cut, because they're typically not so expensive, so I just kept buying other kinds. This one by you know, hands down by far is the best one, and I have 2 of those for some reason. Okay, my eyes are done. Let's move on. So I usually go to bronzer next. So I mentioned in my Tom Ford bronzer brush review video, this brush you can contour with, or you can diffuse your bronzer. I've been contouring with the Charlotte Tilbury, what do you call it? Film Star Bronze and Glow. Watch this. You can get bronzer. If you use just the tip of the brush, you can get the bronzer right in there. And then historically, I'm using by Laura Mercier, the Matte Radiance Baked Powder Bronzer in shade number 3. Or I'm using by Marc Jacobs, the Tantastic Omega Bronzer. I use the same brush. I know, I use the same brush. Probably because I feel like he is so expensive, he should do more than one thing. But that is how I will then apply, buff in that little bit of contour powder, and then I will apply my bronzer. What's great is I use this in a little circular motion on my cheek. I use it to apply bronzer on my forehead in a dabbing motion. I don't rub when I apply on my forehead because I feel like the foundation at my hairline, I try not to go into my hairline, so that foundation is not as firm as it is all over my face, and this could potentially kind of rub off some of that foundation. So I find that if I poke, it keeps the foundation in place, but then also adds bronzer. I will also use this under my jawline, and then I'll bring it down. Amazing bronzer brush. Now, if you choose not to go for that and you want to get a contour brush, I always keep on hand for, I don't know why. I just love this brush. This is the NARS Ita brush. This might have come from JaclynHill too. Really great contour brush. I think it's one of the best. Because it really does get it in there and then is soft enough so that you can then diffuse it out and it doesn't leave any harsh lines. Okay, so we've bronzed. Now we are blushing. Okay. I have 2 different blush brushes and I'm mostly happy with both of them. I use from Morphe the M530. I like that he's small and round because that's where I want to put my blush, on my cheekbones. Some people drag it up. I got bronzer up there. I don't want to like multi-layer that badly. So, I mean, I will a little bit, but this allows you to place your oh my gosh. This allows you to place your blush very specifically because I don't want blush kind of running all over my face. I feel like do I need to even out a little bit? It's also really soft and it kind of diffuses the powder nicely, which, what else do you want from a blush brush? I use one other. This is by Japanesque. I think this is actually the contour brush. I'll list it down below. But I like that this is small. I use this for blush also for my very pigmented blushes. The NARS blushes come to mind, but there are others. And pigmented blushes require a very light hand. And you can even see as I'm dabbing myself that it is a very soft bristled brush. If I were to use this other guy with some of those highly pigmented, it would pick up way too much powder. That would be a very, very bad and sad day. The last thing I do, I need highlighter. Bink. This came from Elle Leary Artistry. She talked about, this is what I use for highlighter. I'm surprised. She recommended it to set your under eye. I felt like that was too big. I wasn't a fan of that. This is by Sephora. This is the Pro Featherweight Blending number, I think it says 93. It looks like this. I use this for highlighter. I don't know why. It just, for some reason, applies highlighter really nice. I guess I don't like very narrow, small brushes. I like things to just kind of blend in. And this, for some reason, actually, I don't think I'm wearing any highlighter. Let's put on a little highlighter. I've been loving by Marc Jacobs. I think I mentioned this before. The Guilty Omega Glaze highlighter. Beautiful. It's like a pinky gold, peachy gold. I just literally tap, and then, oh, this brush is just so, I don't want to go crazy with the highlighter here. Well, why not at this point? Honestly, I'm sure I look like a little bit of a hot mess as it is. I don't know. It just, you can't make a mistake when you're using this brush, at least for me. I'm very particular about highlighter, and so that guy helps me not look like a freak. The last thing I use happens to be also by Japanesque. This is their powder brush. This guy, you can barely feel him. I use him with my finishing powders. I use the same Hourglass Ambient Lighting powder, and that's what I use to blend everybody in. Apply just a little bit of powder. It kind of buffs everybody together. So soft, doesn't move your makeup around, doesn't move your foundation around, doesn't prickle you or anything. And it's probably one of the softest brushes that, I own. Okay, the honorable mentions that kind of come back into rotation. This is going to be so random, and I'm going to do it really quick, so that way I don't continue to keep you here. Holy cow. Okay, so this is by Sephora. This is the Pro Core Diffuser, number 94. Awesome buffing foundation brush. It's denser in the center, softer around the outside. Totally blends in your foundation so seamlessly. I have a couple other foundation brushes. This is the IT Cosmetics. I can't read what it says. The IT Cosmetics Airbrush Blurring Foundation. That's this guy right here. I think I got this for free. I don't want to put that over my powder. Blends your foundation in very seamlessly. It's stiff, not too stiff. Rounded, a little bit flat. It's kind of like the hybrid baby child of all of them. If you can't afford an IT Cosmetics brush, you know what else works really good too? Also by e.l.f. The black brush line. This is the foundation blurring brush. Also really does the same thing. It feels virtually as good. I think the IT Cosmetics is a hair larger, but if your budget doesn't allow for it, go for the one by e.l.f. Randomly, this is by Bobbi Brown. This is the face blender brush. This is actually meant for foundation. I've actually never used it for foundation, but I find that it blends face powders, like colored face powders, in beautifully. I used to use this for bronzer. Sometimes I've used it for blush. Just a happy brush, and kind of random. I think I got like the smaller version size of it, like in a buy something, get a free brush sort of thing. And even though I had the smaller one, I went and got the bigger one anyway. I love that brush. Also by Sigma, I have the large angled contour, the F40. I've used this to apply pointed oil absorbing powders. I've used this to apply blush. It's one of the best angled brushes that I've used. I find that like some of the other angled brushes, like they pancake out and then they don't really do anything because hardly any part of it is touching your skin. But this is the best angled one that I've used. Okay, soft powder. Yes, soft powder. By IT Cosmetics. This is the black line. This is the Velvet Luxe. This is the powder brush. Oh my God, this brush is just happiness. You could use this as a blurring brush, or, you know, like a blurring blending brush, like when you're all done, or you could just use this for applying powder. It is so soft. It's like liquid. I love that brush. Can't afford that? I've got a dupe for you. This is by Wet n Wild. This is just a straight up powder brush. You can find these, I know for sure, still at CVS. Oh my God, softest, fluffiest, gets the job done brush that I can never imagine for like, what is it? Is it $5? I don't know, give or take, something like that. Something so cheap you can't even buy coffee for that price. Love that brush. Okay, this is a stupid brush. I don't know why this brush works. This is by IT Cosmetics. I can't remember I don't have the name on it. It's actually worn off. This is the biggest brush ever on the planet. I don't know why. I love how it applies powder. Clearly, it does not apply powder in a pointed, specific way, but I don't know. This brush just makes me happy. I will never get rid of that brush. A couple others. This is by Sephora. This is also a great powder brush, kind of middle of the road. It is the Pro Airbrush number 55. This is a pretty popular kind of cult following sort of brush. I'm always going on this side. This side of my face is going to be like completely washed out. But this also is small enough so that it gets all over, but does a really nice job diffusing and blending because of the way it is. Okay. I don't know why. For some reason, I love this brush too. The Sigma Powder / Blush Brush, the F10. I have used this for both of those things. I don't know. It's just soft and fluid. I like when the bristles look fluid, and I feel like this one does it. It is very similar to the very similar to the Sephora 55 brush, just so you know. If you don't want to use a Morphe, the 501 brush, to set your under eye concealer, The Morphe M438 miniature tulip tapered brush is what I used for years to set my under eye powder, set my under eye concealer with powder. It is the only one that doesn't prickle me. Sigma actually makes one. That one stabs me like crazy. So if you maybe do apply concealer to a larger area and you want to set it with something, this brush will work really well for that. I love that brush. Finally, this is random. This is by Sedona Lace. This is the FB01 fan brush. It's a very luscious, thick fan brush. Remember I was saying before how I do my foundation first and then I go into my eyes, and then you run into that conflict of having fallout and like shadow on your cheekbones and stuff. This guy gets rid of it. You can use it to get into the corner, sweep it up, drag it down. Very, very soft. I suppose you could highlight with it, but that would just be way too much highlighter for me. So, but just random. I just love that it was a fan brush with attitude. Oh my gosh. I think I'm done. And I'm not going to take a long time to close either. Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like this video if you did. Also, don't forget to leave me comments letting me know what your favorite brushes are. What should I buy? Especially Wayne Goss, because I don't have any of those. What other, there's actually a ton of other brush brands out there that I haven't even jumped into yet. So please help me spend my money so that I can't retire and I have to work until the rest of my life. Anyway, thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a really great holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.